Finally, we're close to the end of Ezekiel. This will be the story of the prophet Ezekiel, part 12. One more to go. We'll start with Ezekiel, the 41st chapter, the first verse. And we'll have hints all through this that this is the end time temple. Ezekiel, the 41st chapter, the first verse. And he brought me to the temple and measured the pillars, 6 cubits wide from here and 6 cubits wide from there, which was the breadth of the tabernacle. And the breadth of the door was 10 cubits. That's a wide door. And the sides of the door, 5 cubits. That's a thick door. I've got to get some kind of pictures to. I found something last night, but it wasn't complete. But I'll show you something about this at some point. And this is a huge temple. 5 cubits from there, and 5 cubits from there. And he measured its length, 40 cubits, and the breadth, 20 cubits. And he went inside and measured the pillar of the door, 2 cubits, and the door was 6 cubits, and the breadth of the door, 7 cubits. And he measured its length, 20 cubits, and the breadth, 20 cubits. Perfect cube. Before the temple. And he said to me, then he brought me into the sanctuary. Because Ezekiel was a priest himself, he could go into the sanctuary and the holy place with his radiant guide at his side. It was a real room with actual spatial dimensions. He went inside. Ezekiel did not follow his radiant guide into the most holy place. Ezekiel was a priest, but not the high priest, who alone had access into the Holy of Holies. Again, this was a real room with actual measurable dimensions. Continue at Ezekiel, the 41st chapter, the 4th verse. This is the Holy of Holies. And he measured the wall of the house, 6 cubits, and the width of each room was 4 cubits, and all the house on the side, every side, and the side chambers were a side chamber over a side chamber, stacked, 3 stories and 30 times. And they entered the wall of the house for the side chambers all around, that they might be fastened, for they were not fastened to the wall of the house. Freestanding. 30 stories high, freestanding in the building. This was a huge place. That they might be fastened, for they were not fastened to the wall of the house. Verse 7. And there was a widening and a winding upwards and upwards to the side chambers. For the winding around of the house went upward and upward all around the house. On account of this, the width of the house went upward. And so from the lowest, it went up to the highest by the middle story. I also saw the height of the house all around. The foundations of the side rooms, were a full reed, 6 large cubits by joining. The width of the wall, which was for the side chamber to the outside, was 5 cubits. And what was left between the side chambers that were of the house and between the chambers was the width of 20 cubits, circling the house all around. And the door of the side chamber was toward the open space, one door northward and one door southward. And the width of the place of the open space was 5 cubits all around. And the building that was before the separate place at the end of the way of the west was 70 cubits wide. And the wall of the building was 5 cubits wide, all around. And its length, 90 cubits. And he measured the house, 100 cubits long. And the separate place, that was a separate place in the building itself. And the building and its wall were 100 cubits long. And the width of the front of the house and of the separate place eastward was 100 cubits. Then he measured the length of the building to the front of the separate place, which was behind it. And its gallery from there and there, 100 cubits. In the inner temple and the porches of the court, the thresholds and the latticed narrow windows, and the galleries all around, they're 3 stories across from the threshold, with wood paneling all around. And from the ground up to the windows, and the windows were covered to that above the door, even to the inner house and outside, and by all the wall around inside and out, by measure. And it was made with cherubs and palm trees. And a palm tree was between cherub and cherub. And each cherub had 2 faces. If you remember, one was a man, one a bull. The face of a man was toward the palm tree got that wrong. The other one was a lion. The face of a man was toward the palm tree from there, and the face of a young lion toward the palm tree from there. It was made throughout the house, all around. From the ground to above the door were cherubs and palm trees made. And on the wall of the temple posts, doorposts were squared. In the face of the sanctuary, the looks of the one was like the look of the other. The altar of wood was 3 cubits high, and the length 2 cubits, and its corners and its length and its walls were of wood. And he said to me, "This is the table that is before Yahweh." And the temple and the sanctuary had 2 doors. And 2 doors' leaves were to each of the doors. 2 turning doors. 2 for the one door and 2 for the other door. And on them, on the temple doors, were made cherubs and palm trees, like those made on the walls, and thick wood on the face of the porch outside, and latticed windows and palm trees were from there, here and from there, on the sides of the porch and on the side chambers of the house, and wooden canopies, covered areas. I would assume that these were the places where the people during the feast would be outside in the festal areas. Continuing in Ezekiel, the 42nd chapter, the 1st verse. And he brought me out into the outer court, the way northward. And he brought me into the chamber that was across from the separate place, which was in front of the building to the north. And the length of 100 cubits was the north door, and the width was 50 cubits. Across from the 20 cubits, which were for the inner court, and across from the pavement, which was for the outer court, gallery was on gallery in 3 stories. And before the chamber was a walk of 10 cubits width inward, a way of 1 cubit, and their doors were northward. And the upper chambers were shorter, for the galleries used up more space than the lower and middle ones in the building. For they were in 3 stories, but there were no columns to them like the columns of the courts. There was nothing holding these floors up. They were freestanding there. We haven't had a way to do that yet. And they say it like it's nothing. Freestanding 3 stories up? This is the stuff that nobody reads too much because it proves to them unequivocally there is an Elohim. Verse 6. For they were in 3 stories, but there were no columns to them like the columns of the courts. To the 3rd story was made narrower than the lower and the middle stories from the ground. And the wall that was outside the chambers toward the outer court, or the front of the chambers, its length was 50 cubits. For the length of the chambers that were in the outer court was 50 cubits. And lo, in front of the temple was 100 cubits. And under these chambers was the entrance on the east side, as one goes into them from the outer court. In the width of the wall of the court eastward to the front of the separate area, and to the front of the building were chambers. And the way in front of them looked like the chambers which were northward, as their length, so their width, matching. And all their exits were as their patterns, and as their doors. And as the doors of the chambers that were southward was a door in the head of the way, even the way directly in front of the wall, eastward, as one enters them. And he said to me, the north chambers and the south chambers, which are in front of the separate place, they are holy chambers, where the priests shall eat. Those who approach to Yahweh shall eat the holy things, the most holy things. There they shall lay the most holy things, and the food offering, and the sin offering, and the guilt offering. For this place is holy. When the priests enter, then they shall not go out of the holy place into the outer court, but they shall lay their clothes there, by which they minister in them, for they are holy. And they shall put on other clothes, and shall approach that which is for the people. And he finished measuring the inner house. He brought me out the way of the gate, whose view is eastward, and measured all around. He measured the east side with the measuring reed, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed all around. He measured the north side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed all around. He measured the south side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed. He turned to the west side, measuring 500 reeds with the measuring reed. He measured it by the four sides. It was a wall all around, 500 long and 500 wide, to make a separation between the holy place and the common place of all people. The glory of Yahweh Elohim fills the temple. Continuing at Ezekiel, the 43rd chapter, the first verse. And he led me to the gate that faces eastward. And behold, the glory of the Elohim of Israel came from the way of the east. Nothing else could do that. Usually when you find something coming from the east, that's something bad coming. Unless that thing coming from the east is Elohim. And behold, the glory of the Elohim of Israel came from the way of the east. And his voice was like the sound of many waters. And the earth shone with his glory. And it looked the same as the vision which I saw, even according to the vision which I saw when I came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision that I saw by the river Kibar. And I fell on my face. And the glory of Yahweh came into the house by the way of the gate which is east. And the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner chamber. And the glory of Yahweh filled the house. It is hard to describe the glory of Yahweh Elohim. The best way to do it is describe the way that the Bible does it. In each instance where it is done, it is done this way. This is the cloud that stood by Israel in the wilderness. Turning to Exodus, the 13th chapter, the 21st verse. Exodus, the 13th chapter, the 21st verse. And Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the right way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light and heat, to go by the day and night. He did not take away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night, for before the people. This is the cloud of glory that Elohim spoke to Israel through. We'll find this in Exodus, the 16th chapter, the 10th verse. And it happened as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the sons of Israel, they turned toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yahweh appeared in the what? Cloud. This is the cloud from which Elohim met with Moses and others. Continuing in Exodus, the 24th chapter, the 15th verse. And Moses went up into the mountain, and a cloud covered the mountain. And the glory of Yahweh abode upon Mount Sinai. And the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called to Moses out of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of Yahweh was like devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the sons of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain. And Moses was in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. And that's when they first started. Every time he disappeared, they went their own way. They made their little idols and all of the other stuff they did. The minute he turned his back, after all of this glory that they had witnessed up to that point, they were so impatient each time. Continuing in Numbers 11, chapter, the 25th verse. Numbers, the 11th chapter, the 25th verse. And Yahweh came down in a cloud and spoke to him, and took of the Spirit on him, and gave it to the 70 elders. And it happened when the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, but they never did so again. Continuing in Numbers, the 16th chapter, the 42nd verse. And it happened when the congregation was gathered together against Moses and against Aaron. They looked toward the tabernacle of the congregation, and behold, what was there? The cloud covered it, and the glory of Yahweh appeared. This is the cloud that stood by the door of the tabernacle. We'll find this again in Exodus, the 16th chapter, the 12th verse. Exodus, the 16th chapter, the 12th verse. I have heard the murmurings of the sons of Israel. Speak to them. Say, you shall eat flesh at evening, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread or manna. and you shall know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Again, this is the cloud of Ezekiel's vision, filling the temple of Elohim with the brightness of his glory. Find this in Ezekiel, the 10th chapter, the 4th verse. Ezekiel, the 10th chapter, the 4th verse. And the glory of Yahweh rose from the cherub over the threshold of the house. And the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was full of the brightness of Yahweh's glory. Get the picture yet? There's more to hear about this. This is the cloud of glory that overshadowed Mary when she conceived Yeshua, our Messiah, by the power of the Holy Spirit. We will find this in Luke, the 1st chapter, the 35th verse. Luke, the 1st chapter, the 35th verse. And the angel answered and said to her, the Holy Spirit shall come on you, and the power of the highest shall overshadow you. Therefore, also, the Holy One which will be born of you shall be called the Son of Elohim. One more to prove what this is. This is the cloud present at the transfiguration of Yeshua. Luke, the 9th chapter, the 33rd verse. And in the parting from him, it happened that Peter said to Yeshua, Messiah, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Not knowing what he said, and as he was saying these things, a cloud came and overshadowed them. And they feared as they entered into the cloud. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, this is my son, the beloved. Hear him. And when the voice occurred, Yeshua was found alone, and they were silent. And no one in those days, anything which they had seen, they talked of. And continuing, this is the cloud of glory that received Yeshua into heaven at his ascension. Acts, the 1st chapter, the 6th verse. Acts, the 1st chapter, the 6th verse. Then indeed, these coming together, they asked him, saying, Master, do you at this time restore the kingdom of Israel? And he said to them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father has put in his own authority. But you shall receive power, the Holy Spirit coming upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me, both in Jerusalem, get this, and in Judea, and in Samaria, especially get this, and to the ends of the earth. There will be more than 2 witnesses in the end. And some of them will be us. Verse 9, and saying these things, as they watched, he was taken up and a cloud received him out of their sight. This is the cloud that will display the glory of Yeshua Messiah when he returns in triumph to this earth. Want some proof on that? Luke, the 21st chapter, the 27th verse. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in a what? A cloud with power and great glory. Luke 21:27. And then they shall see the Son of Man. Who will? Everybody in the world will that is live and awake. Doesn't sound like a secret rapture to me. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to happen, then look up and lift your heads, for your redemption draws near. One more. Revelation, the 1st chapter, the 7th verse. Behold, he comes with the clouds, and every eye will see him. And those who pierced him will see him. What? Yeah, but by this time, they have come back with not spirit bodies, fleshly bodies. And they will see him. This is, for them at least, their last chance at salvation. And this temple we're talking about is the one that they will prove at last they will do what he wanted them to do, or else. Behold, he comes with clouds, and every eye will see him, and those who pierced him will see him, and all the kindreds of the earth will wail because of him. He wasn't supposed to exist.
They're afraid now.
Mm-hmm. And the kindreds of the earth will wail because of him. Even so, amen. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, says the Messiah, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. Funny how all of this stuff fits if you get it right and fit it together the right way. But on the other hand, if you fit it together the way the world does, a little here and a little there and a little this and that and other, and like some say, you can make it say anything you want it to say. But that's wrong. This is right. Continuing in Ezekiel, the 43rd chapter, the 6th verse. Ezekiel, the 43rd chapter, the 6th verse. And I heard him speaking to me from the house, and standing by me as a man. And he said to me, Son of man, the house of Israel shall no more defile the place of my throne, and the soles of the feet of my feet, and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the sons of Israel for a couple of days. No, forever. Neither they nor their kings, by their fornication, nor by the dead bodies of their kings in their high places, in their setting of their doorsteps, by my threshold, and their doorpost, by my doorpost, and the wall between me and them. They have even defiled my holy name. Anybody doubt that? Anybody know the official name of God for the state of Israel? Anybody know what it is?
What they say over there now?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's wrong. And they talk about the Jehovah's Witnesses. They do the same thing. Again, they have defiled my holy name by their abominations, which they have done, and I have consumed them in my anger. Some of them aren't going to get through. He doesn't tell us which ones that somebody isn't going to get through. It says so right here. And I have consumed them in my anger. Verse 9. Now let them put away their fornication and the dead bodies of their kings from me, and I will dwell in their midst forever. You, son of man, declare to the house of Israel, the temple house, so that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and let them measure its size. The ones that come back in this phase, they saw Herod's temple, not a wall that was never part of it. These people saw Herod's temple. As this end time temple is many times bigger in size and majesty than even Herod's temple that was raised flat in 70 AD. How high will Mount Zion become? This isn't a popular answer, but it's truthful. I don't know. But the vision of Ezekiel had him so elevated that he wouldn't even gander a guess. This thing had dimensions that they had never seen before. But according to the dimensions that Ezekiel gives for the land area that is dedicated to the temple and its service, Mount Zion could easily be 1 mile high. The temple site will be 1 mile square, but the land surrounding the temple will be about 52 miles long and 21 miles wide. If we were to fit a mountain into those dimensions, it could easily reach to 1 mile high, even with gentle slopes of some sort, guiding your way up to it. At this point, though, whatever height it is, it'll be the highest point on the planet. The following verses describe the outside length of the temple building site. The temple building site will include walls, courtyards, many rooms, and of course, the temple itself. The dimensions are given in reeds. The 1 reed is equal to 11 feet. 500 reeds are equal to 5,500 feet and just over 1 mile. So the temple proper will be about 1 mile square. That's a huge temple. 1 mile square. Continuing in Ezekiel, the 43rd chapter, the 11th verse. And if they are ashamed of all that they have done, the form of the house and its arrangement and its exits and its entrances and all its forms and all its statutes and all its forms and all its laws and all its what? Laws. He does have a way of getting his point across, doesn't he? And all its laws make known to them and write them before their eyes, so that they may observe all its form and all its statutes and do them. And he said that in large capital, and do them. This is the law of the house on the top of the mountain in all its borders, all around. Most holy. Behold, this is the law of the house. And these are the measures of the altar by the cubit. The cubit is a cubit and a span. Even the base shall be a cubit, and the width a cubit. And its border by its edge all around shall be a span. And this is the upper part of the altar. And from the base on the ground, even to the lower edge, shall be 2 cubits. And the width 1 cubit. And from the smaller ledge, even to the greater ledge, shall be 4 cubits. And the width 1 cubit. Verse 15. And the altar hearth shall be 4 cubits. And from the altar hearth and upward shall be 4 horns. And the altar hearth shall be 12 cubits long, 12 wide, square in its 4 sides. And the ledge shall be 14 long and 14 wide in its 4 sides. And the border around it shall be half a cubit, and its base a cubit around. And its steps shall face eastward. And he said to me, Son of man, so says the sovereign Yahweh, these are the statutes of the altar in the day of its being made, to offer its burnt offerings and to sprinkle blood on it. And you shall give a young bull for a sin offering to the priests, the Levites, who are the seed of Zadok, who approach me to minister to me, says the sovereign Yahweh. And you shall take of its blood and put it on its 4 horns, and on the 4 corners of the ledge, and on the border all around. So you shall cleanse and purge it. You shall also take the bull of the sin offering, and he shall burn it in the appointed place of the house, outside the sanctuary. And on the 2nd day, you shall offer a kid of the goats, without blemish, for a sin offering. And they shall cleanse the altar as they cleansed it with the bull. And when you have finished cleansing it, you shall offer a young bull without blemish, and a ram out of the flock without blemish. And you shall offer them before Yahweh And the priests shall cast salt on them, and they shall offer them up for a burnt offering to Yahweh. Every day for 7 days you shall prepare a goat for a sin offering. They also shall prepare a young bull and a ram out of the flock without blemish. 7 days they shall purge the altar and purify it, and they shall consecrate themselves. And when these days are expired, it shall be that on the 8th day and forward, the priests shall make your burnt offerings before the altar and your peace offering, and I will accept you. Now he will accept you if you do this one more time. And when I say one more time, the whole cycle of holy days, you will do this during that cycle. And in his estimation, somebody during that cycle will rebel. That's why he's going to do it a cycle instead of doing it once. Anybody can do it once if they're used to it. These people were doing this were the original guys that did it. And this is their last chance to do it the right way. Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, the 1st verse. And he brought me back to the way of the gate of the outer sanctuary, which looks eastward, and it was shut. And Yahweh said to me, this gate shall be shut. It shall not be opened, and no man shall enter into it. Because Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, has entered in by it. Therefore, it shall be shut. No one else will be enter you that door. Verse 3. It is for the ruler. The ruler shall sit in it to eat bread before Yahweh. He shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and shall go out by the same way. And he brought me by the way of the north gate before the house. And I looked, and behold, the glory of Yahweh filled the house of Yahweh. And I fell on my face. And Yahweh said to me, Son of man, note carefully, see with your eyes, and hear with your ears all that I say to you concerning all the ordinances of the house of Yahweh and all its laws, and set your heart to the entrance of the house with all the exits of the sanctuary. And you shall say to the rebellious, to the house of Israel, this says the sovereign Yahweh, O house of Israel, let it be more than enough for you. All of your hateful deeds that you have brought, strangers, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh. Notice the difference there. To be in my sanctuary, to profane it, even my house, when you offer my bread, the fat and the blood. The fat and the blood. A double whammy, if you know what that represents. They were not supposed to be eating fat or blood. And they have broken my covenant because all of your abominations. And you have not kept the charge of my holy things, but you have But you have set keepers of my charge in my sanctuary for themselves. Notice the slight change here. Verse 9. So says the sovereign Yahweh, no son of an alien, uncircumcised of heart and uncircumcised of flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary. And any son of an alien among the sons of Israel. But the Levites who have gone far away from me when Israel went astray, those who went astray from me after their idols, they shall even bear their iniquity. They're not going to get away with it. Yet they shall be ministers in my sanctuary. They will live, but not very high will their rank in the kingdom. It said somewhere else, the ones that obey will be high up in the kingdom, and the other ones will. I, for a long time, didn't even think they were going to be there. But this changes all that. They're going to be there, but they're not going to be ranked as Levites anymore. They're going to be just there. Yet they shall be ministers in my sanctuary, overseers at the gates of the house, and ministering to the house. They shall kill the burnt offerings and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before them to minister to them, because they ministered to them before their idols, and caused the house of Israel to fall into iniquity. Therefore I have lifted up my hand against them, says the sovereign Yahweh, and they shall bear their iniquity. And they shall not come near me to do the office of a priest to me, nor come near any of my holy things. They're just going to be there, essentially. In the most holy place. But they shall bear their shame and their abominations which they have committed. But I will make them keepers of the charge of the house for all its service and for all that shall be done in it. But the priest, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, who kept the charge of my sanctuary when the sons of Israel went astray from me, they shall come near me to minister to me, and they shall stand before me to offer me the fat and the blood, says the sovereign Yahweh. They shall enter my sanctuary, and they shall come near my table to minister to me, and they shall keep my charge. And it shall be when they enter in at the gates of the inner court, they shall be clothed with bleached linen clothing, and no wool shall come on them while they serve in the gates of the inner court and inside. Turbans of bleached linen shall be on their heads, and shall have bleached linen undergarments on their loins. They shall not clothe themselves with anything that causes sweat. And when they go out into the outer court, even into the outer court of the people, they shall put off their clothes in which they ministered, and lay them in the holy chambers. And they shall put on other clothes, so that they shall not sanctify the people with their own clothes. Nor shall they shave their heads, nor allow their hair to grow long. They shall only trim their heads. And every priest shall not drink wine when they enter into the inner court. Nor shall they take for their wives a widow, nor her who is put away. But they shall take virgins of the seed of the house of Israel, or a widow who had a priest before. And they shall teach my people to discern between the holy and common, and between the unclean and the clean. This says that he's going to teach them one last time. And it's up to them at that point. I'm not going to say what's going to happen. I don't know. 24. And in a dispute, they shall stand in judgment, and they shall judge it according to my judgments. And they shall keep my laws and my statutes in all assemblies. And they shall keep my Sabbaths holy. And he shall not come near any dead person to defile himself. But they may defile themselves for father, or for mother, or for son, or for daughter, for brother, or for sister, who has had no husband. And after he is cleansed, they shall count 7 days for him. And in that day, he goes into the sanctuary, to the inner court, to minister in the sanctuary. He shall offer his sin offering, says the sovereign Yahweh. And it shall be to them for an inheritance. I am their inheritance. And you shall give them no possession in Israel. I am their possession. They shall eat the food offering and the sin offering and the guilt offering. If anybody remembers, they stole all of this stuff before. Anything they wanted, they just steal it. And now they're limited to only that to eat while they're there. I'm assuming the end of this is in the last 2 chapters, how he does this. And they're going to be punished in some way. I don't know what it is so far. And these pieces don't even come together for you until you read it all together. And that's why so many people, however many commentaries you have, there is little information on these passages in any of them. 31. The priests shall not eat of anything that died of itself, or is torn, whether it is bird or animal. Last chapter today anyway. The Holy District. Ezekiel, the 45th chapter, the 1st verse. Almost done. Ezekiel, the 45th chapter, the 1st verse. And when you make fall the land by lot for inheritance, you shall offer an offering to Yahweh, a holy portion of the land. The length shall be 25,000 cubits long, and the width 10,000. It shall be holy in all its borders all around. Of this, there shall be 500 by 500 cubits for the sanctuary, square all around, and 50 cubits around shall be for its open space. And for the measure you shall measure, the length of 25,000 and the width of 10,000. In it shall be the sanctuary and the most holy place. And it is the holy portion of the land for the priests. It shall be for the ministers of the sanctuary who come near to minister to Yahweh. And it shall be a place for their houses, and a place and a holy place for the sanctuary. And the 25,000 cubits in length and the 10,000 in width shall also be for the Levites, the ministers of the house, for themselves for a possession. 20 rooms. And you shall give the possession of the city 5,000 cubits wide and 25,000 long. Besides the offering of the holy portion, it shall be for the whole house of Israel. And a portion shall be for the rulers from here and from there, for the heave offering of the holy place and the possession of the city, in front of the heave offering of the holy place, and the front of the city's possession. From the west side westward, and from the east side eastward. And the length shall be alongside one of the portions, for the west border to the east border. It shall be for a land to him, for a possession in Israel. And my rulers shall never again oppress my people. Banging on it again. It shall be for a land to him, for a possession in Israel. And my rulers shall never again oppress my people. And they shall give the rest of the land to the house of Israel, according to their tribes. So says the sovereign Yahweh. Enough for you, O rulers of Israel. Remove violence and spoil, and do justice and judgment. Take away your demands on my people, says the sovereign Yahweh. You shall have a just balance, a just ephah, and a just bath. Those are measures. Verse 11. The ephah and the bath shall be of one measure, that the bath may contain the 10th part of a homer, and the ephah the 10th part of a homer. Its measure shall be according to the homer, and the shekel shall be 20 gerahs, 20 shekels, 25 shekels, 15 shekels shall be your manna. This is the heave offering that you shall offer. The 1/6 of an ephah of a homer of wheat, and the 1/6 of an ephah of a homer of barley. And as the statute of oil, the bath of oil, you shall offer the 10th of a bath out of the core, which is a homer of 10 baths. For 10 baths are a homer. And 1 lamb out of the flock, out of 200, out of the watered pasture of Israel, for a food offering, and for a burnt offering, and for peace offerings, to make atonement for them, says the Lord Yahweh, the sovereign Yahweh. All the people of the land shall be at the heave offering for the ruler of Israel. And it shall be the ruler's part to give burnt offerings and food offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths, in all appointed feasts of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering and the food offering and the burnt offering. And the peace offerings to make atonement for the house of Israel. So says the sovereign Yahweh, in the first month, in the first of the month, you shall take a bull without blemish, a son of the herd, and cleanse the sanctuary. And the priests shall take of the blood of the sin offering and put it on the doorposts of the house and on the four corners of the ledge of the altar. And on the gateposts of the inner court. And so you shall do on the 7th of the month. For each man who goes astray, and for the simple, so you shall atone for the house. Even he has a way to atone for only the ones who come back in flesh. One more chance. You have here an awesome Yahweh. He gives you every chance possible. And some still go their own way. "23. In 7 days of the feast, he shall prepare a burnt offering to Yahweh, 7 bulls and 7 rams without blemish, daily for the 7 days, and the kids of the goats daily for a sin offering. And he shall prepare a food offering of an ephah for a bull, and an ephah for a ram, and a hin of oil for an ephah. In the 7th month, on the 15th day of the month, at the feast, he shall prepare like these 7 days, according to the sin offering, according to the burnt offering, and according to the food offering, and according to the oil." Apparently, these things will exist only for the ones that came back in flesh from Israel. And after a period of time, I don't know what that period of time will be. It might come up next week, it might not. But after their trial period is over, some will get in. He said a remnant, not all. Not all will get in. But some will, and they have had so many chances. But some won't. Last part of this next week. Any questions on this, or any comments, or any clarifications? Yeah.
What was the purpose of the getting into details with all of the specific sizes of all of the buildings tonight?
Everything he does specifically.
Right.
And
What do you think the meaning of it was, the sizes of all the buildings?
it was one that would be sufficiently larger than Herod's temple, the one that was in existence, they saw with their own eyes. And they saw something that much bigger and higher that would blow their minds. That simple. Any more? Develop.
It says, and then they shall come, and the dead person shall not defile themselves, brother or the sister that has no husband. What are they going to the temple and they shouldn't come in till they?
Yes, after so many days, they're cleansed, and then they can come in.
Why did it specify the sister that didn't have any husband defiled?
The rules are going to be different because they haven't obeyed any rules. They had their own rules. That's a new rule. That's a new rule. I haven't seen that anywhere else.
How about the brother that had a husband? What?
Same thing. A new rule.
It specified that.
Mhm.
You said your mother or your father or the daughter.
It used to be any dead person. They didn't specify what's what. They were dead. You can't touch them.
Then someplace else in the scripture where it says about the you don't go to a funeral or something like that.
No, they
Don't be around a dead person.
no touching, touching, physical touching.
Yeah.
That's the limitation. You can't touch them.
Somebody else.
Mhm.
So is that still true today?
Yeah.
That
Sorry.
If we touch, then we're defiled?
Yes. Yes.
You
You weren't doing anything, but I know what you're talking about. But you weren't doing anything in any official capacity. It went over your head like it's nothing.
so it's
Yeah.
just for the
Mhm.
person officiating.
In this place, no. Yes. Yes.
It
And for this particular event, the only people that those laws will be in place for is the Jews that never obeyed them in the first place.
for the Jews.
Mm-hmm. The one that came back in flesh. Dry bones, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ruby.
Going back a bit, the comment that developed was saying about touching the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when my mom passed away, I was right there when she had her, when she died
Mhm.
after my brother. Right at the second, I went like this, and I think that was one of the things my brother hated me for because he was all over my mom, hugging and crying, everybody was.
Mhm.
And I stepped away. I cried, but I stepped away. I wasn't all over. But then I just thought right now, what if my kids would pass away or my husband? But I step away, and even though
They're not there anymore. They don't know in one way or the other.
But it just paused, it just entered my mind. I don't know why, but it did because I didn't do it with any of my families that just passed away with my uncles either. I didn't. Everybody was jumping and crying and touching and kissing them and just holding them.
Mhm.
They were like, no, my mother-in-law just passed away too. I didn't do that either. Everybody questioned why. He said, because we're not to touch the dead. And he looked at me strange, like, you don't love them, you know.
Rashida
No,
first.
they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not there anymore. Rashida.
Filed for a long period of time.
No.
Right.
7 days.
Yeah, saved fireworks.
No, that was more for the Old Testament
Right.
more than anything else because the priests more than anyone else. But it's still there. But a lot of that is like the other cleanliness laws. We have a system now. If you could go up and dig up the grave of anybody, Abraham Lincoln right now, he would look like he did when they buried him. The embalming and such was so advanced, even back in his day. If you open that thing now, he would see him.
Like wax. Wax.
Yeah. They basically, embalming process is basically like that person that, I don't know any, yes I do. Wallace does that as a hobby. Taxidermy. And those animals aren't alive anymore, and they can't harm you anymore. They're cute, and that's his way of keeping them around, and anybody else that does that. But there's no rule about that. But a lot of people do it, just not Wallace. Taxidermy is a big thing, even today. But that's all embalming is, an advanced form of taxidermy. Anybody that you buried, they're still there, and they look pretty much the same.
I have a mutual friend, they own a couple of funeral homes, and their son invited me one time because I was curious. And I asked about embalming and then when they,
Once is enough.
the word, for the life of me.
Once is enough.
Fire and ashes, what is it called?
Cremation.
So I went to the actual place, and he said to me, he's just giving me the name Jim. Jim says, would you like to come in and see what I do? And I said, sure. This was just last year. And I did go, and I was curious. I was really, really curious. And I seen everything that they possibly could do. And then I asked differences, and they said, you know why some people who have money go in decay, even though the scripture says that the spirit goes back to where it came from? Because we use different liquids, and it's like wax, and it waxes everything inside, that the body is not like the one that we use in embalming fluid, because it becomes cold and grayish, and we have to put makeup. With this other stuff, we don't. They stay intact from the day that they passed away, except if it was an accident, we cover them up, we fix them up as much as they can. So if they were to be resumed again 10 years or 15 years, they would be from the day that they passed away the same way. But that came to my mind. I said, well, they're Christians, and yet he does this for a living. It just kind of messed a little bit with my head, kind of came to question, well, then why are you doing it? But he felt that he wanted to honor the Father by having rest the way the Father had given him before these horrible accidents. That's how the only way he's seen it. But I just like, and he had a body on the other room, but he said, look, I like to see it. I said, I'm okay. I've seen it because I worked in a hospital, so I've seen quite a bit. But I just said, no, I'm okay. I wasn't scared, I just said no.
Sandy.
Because when you think of nurses and doctors, for instance, Jenny, is the one who's doing. I'm sure she has dealt with patients to die. She's a nurse. So she's unclean for 7 days. If she had to prepare that body to go down to the morgue or whatever, she's just unclean for that. The same way with a woman on
Yeah.
the ministry. She's unclean. You know, to be, you know, to yeah. So she's just, it's not like you're forever unclean. It's an analogy, yeah.
It's ceremonial unclean anyway.
Yeah. But you know, it's so funny because Pastor and I were kind of speaking on that this morning. We had, Ruby comes to clean the sanctuary on Thursdays. So it's clean, it's mopped, it's clean, but she'd had an event on Sunday, so we still needed to put the tablecloths back on. So as we were down here this morning putting the tablecloths, and Whitney was helping, and I told Pastor, I said, you know, this is like when the priest came in the morning and prepared the day. They prepared Sabbath, you know, they prepared for it. but it gives you a sense of respect, yes? It gives you a sense of respect for, even though it's just a room, you know, and most people think, well, this is a house, you know, it's not a church. But when you think about it, Melina said she would do a Bible study on how many churches were done in homes. Yes. There were so many churches that were,
Most of the New Testament churches were house churches.
Were house churches. And people think that you need this building in order to praise the Father, or in order to worship, or in order to respect the place that you're in. Wherever you are, you should respect it.
The Spirit is in you.
Yes, yes.
The Spirit is in you.
Right. And Pastor and I were talking, and I said, you know, there's so much has gone on in this room, this one room, you know. And I said, forever, we should never let anyone disrespect, because this is where this temple is. And it shouldn't be disrespected. It should be always, yes, because this is the place that we come to worship, even though it's our home. And I don't even come down here during the week, maybe to do laundry, but I very seldom come down, you know. And we used to spend all of our time down here because we would watch movies or whatever. But, yeah, or it was a gym, you know, to work out. But now my gym is in the kitchen, you know. But now it's a place that we worship and that we should reverence the Father, because this is where we do it, right here. And it should be respected. And we were just thinking about this morning. Yeah, we were preparing, and Whitney and I were putting the plastic on the table, and I said, this reminds me of what they did to come in that morning to prepare it for the congregation.
That was basically what I was talking about in the end time temple. What they were doing, not for the everyday things, but for the period they're going to be finally obeying him and doing the things that they asked about, the cleansing of the blood after the sacrifices and all of that. But the thing is, nobody else is going to do those sacrifices, because that was never our intention to do that. Only the Jews did that, and they never did it.
Right, that was sacrifice.
No, what's so amazing is that how other religions, especially pagan religions, how they give so much of themselves. But when it comes to us, we're kind of like haphazardly doing things. Like I think about, like for the Japanese and Chinese temples, before they go into worship, they actually get on their hands and knees and they scrub before anyone goes. I mean, on their hands and knees. They can't just get a mop. No, it's not enough. They put everything into their preparation. Or you think about like all of these, how Satan has people worshiping him with all of themselves. When it comes to us, oh, we can make it. We can make Jew here. We can cut corners here. And like, why is that the case? Why is that the case? We have to give of all of ourselves. And when it comes to a building, oh, well, they'll clean up. And no, let's clean up. Let's do this. Let's give of ourselves.
But the only thing that you really supposed to give is your heart, fully. And all of that,
Heart leads.
the heart is wrong. Everything you're going to do is wrong in that position.
Well, it's the same thing. We can just wander in at any time. If service starts at noon, then we should be here in order to partake of services at noon. The door should be locked at a certain time, that you don't just come in and disrupt, or the bell of the door, because when the door opens, the alarm system says, back door open. And I'm sure it's on the tapes. It's not important about the tapes. It's important about the worship that is for real. That if you're coming in, come in on time. And if you don't come in on time, we'll sit on the balcony and not disturb what is going on. I think that's what we forget. We forget that it's we think it's a house and not the place of where we worship.
I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
I think it's deeper than that. Some people, I don't name names, but usually I'm in the book. I don't even look up. I look up at what time it is. And 9 times out of 10, I know before I look up who's coming in that door. This is the first time I've said that. And it's on tape now. I'm out there. But usually I don't even look up because I know who it is. And it's always the same people.
I think that's what we should do. Put a sign out there. Due to recording, there will be no
Well,
disturbance.
no, not doing recording. It's not the recording.
Due to this service itself.
It's the service of
Okay,
the Father.
okay.
That's what's important. Recording is just recording. It's not a big deal. I mean, they didn't record in the first century churches. They weren't recording. If you didn't hear it, you didn't hear it. If you weren't there, you weren't there. You didn't get it. It wasn't a replay. You know, but this is technology now. But it's more important of how we worship and how we present ourselves spiritually within this body, within the place that we're worshiping.
You know, I'm pretty sure that people, when they were bringing their sacrifice, oh, hold on, I'm late, but hey, hold on, I got my goat here. And no, it was a reverent time. They weren't, oh, wait a minute, I forgot my goat. Oh, hold on, let me get my goat. No, it was important. And then I think we forget that where he says, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I will be there. We're not coming in late just for, the recording or the sound or whatever. He's here. He's amongst us. And I think we forget that because we're just looking at each other, but he's here. He's guiding the services. He is the priest, our high priest. And we forget, that's who we're coming to meet with. That's who we're coming to commune with. That's who we're coming to learn from. Because these are not your words that you're speaking.
Not at all.
He's guiding everything. We're just the vessels.
Well, he should.
Right. But he's reading straight from the word, so boom. But he is the one guiding everything. We are the vessels, nothing but vessels. So if we're coming in, Lord, I'm sorry I'm late, but you know my heart.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly what you hear most of the time. He knows my heart. Yeah. At the same time, he knows your heart.
But in the first century churches, they did read the scriptures. They came in and read the scriptures because we need to be reminded of what is in that word so it can stick. So you're doing exactly what they did. They read the scriptures.
And they prayed
And
for
they
hours.
prayed. They prayed. They worshiped. You know, they sang. They did. There was so many things that can be done, or that we should be doing. Because it definitely said he read the scriptures were read. They prayed. They did a lot of things, but we forget because we're so used to this regimen of, okay, let's do this, let's do that.
It's lost its novelty.
The word, it tells us what to do. It's right there in the word. But we think because it's a house church, and if you look in that word, it's house churches all through the New Testament. All through it. And that's the New Testament. Or think about in the Old Testament when all these kids, doing Passover. What did they do with their kids? Throw them in the garbage or push them and say, okay, you get out, it's Passover. They were having Passover in the churches. What did Yeshua say? Find a place for us to go have Passover. Go prepare a place for us to go.
And the Old Testament always says to teach your children why you are doing this.
Right.
Not, don't look, or this is too holy for you to look for. No, this is why we're doing this.
Start them off young.
There in the churches, you never saw kids doing Passover. Kids were nowhere around because they were like, no, you need to be quiet. You need to keep the kids at home.
Keep them quiet. Keep them quiet.
Right. Keep them quiet.
That's the art that is lost on this generation. No control of their children. And they don't even try.
But going back to the importance of house churches, there's going to be a time when we can't freely worship in a building. That's right. Because the Sabbath will be illegal. It will all go to Sunday, and we won't even be able to express that we believe in the Sabbath.
The machinations of that are in play now.
Yes, look at the church. When they killed all the people in the church. And look at the synagogues where they have now policemen protecting the Senate, guarding the synagogues, because they're afraid.
But look overseas where you can't even say the word Yeshua in a lot of places, or you're getting murdered on sight, especially in China. You can't even mention his name without being murdered or taken into prison. So
Everything is
illegal in other countries.
everything is going into place now. Slowly, just like his trick with us is anything slow we ignore. Everything is fast. Anything fast, we got all over that stuff. And anything that creeps along, that's the thing I'm shooting at. That's the thing I'm shooting at. The slow stuff. And that's where he's slowly doing this thing.
Years back, I learned that slow-moving machinery sometimes can be even more dangerous than the fast. The fast stuff you're like this. Slow stuff you're not worried about, all of a sudden it's got you.
And nothing new under the sun, right?
Yep. Thurman.
So I just want to say, for those that want to read about, the defilement that comes from touching a dead body, read Leviticus 19 and Leviticus 21. 21 talks about the priest and who he may be, who he may defile himself for. It's the same law as in Ezekiel. It's the same persons that he can be.
Was it 19 and 21?
19, and like generally speaking of it, 21 talks about the priest. Leviticus.
Yep. Cut it.